V8, mean and low and lean. Cold bottle curves the wild.
RM Sotheby's is the world's largest collector car auction house by total sales. They are the preeminent market maker of high-quality collector cars and collections, regardless of size or complexity. By working in partnership with the Sotheby's team and its network of 80 offices in 40 countries, RM Sotheby's has established the largest client network of any collector car auction house in the world. Join the RM Sotheby's family by connecting with one of their car specialists at rmsotheby's.com or contact me directly at gstanley@rmsotheby's.com. All right, Ethan, so what did you think about the C3 Corvette Survivor song?
One, pretty funny. And I think there's a line in there somewhere that talks about, like, you know, the big block variants. And then at some point it says that they're like no longer fast, you know, in the 70s and 80s. And that's pretty accurate. I mean, there's C3s are a lot of things, and being great drivers is not one of them, especially in the 80s.
Well, and the reason I created that song for you, and I'll have it at the end of this podcast, and if you go to YouTube channel, do Octane FM on my YouTube channel playlist, you'll see like 30 other fun songs. But yeah, because you have a C3 Corvette, right?
I do. Yeah. Honestly, never wanted one. Wasn't in the market for one. I was actually looking for a Mustang, and I came across the C3 that somebody had put way too much love into and completely redid the entire car, you know, with a modern suspension and a 383 stroker, still a manual, weight reduction. It drives like a modern car, drives like a rocket ship too. It's really fast, it handles really well, and it's now become my favorite car that I've ever owned.
What color is it?
It's silver with a 2.6 on the side because I like race cars.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah. So I have to ask, what was the Mustang? As you can see in the screensaver behind me, I got my hypo back there. What was the Mustang you were chasing?
Fox body. I just wanted a Fox body 5.0, kind of the same flavor. You know, 5.0s are also not, especially from the early 90s, are not particularly fast or you know, cars that are known to drive really well. So I was looking for a 5.0 that somebody had done a similar treatment on. You know, maybe a modern motor, maybe a Coyote swapped 5.0 or something a little wild, and just didn't find it. And then I found the Corvette.
So when you go to Octane FM, for my listeners, I do have a Fox body themed song. So
Nice.
I can't remember if it's busting on those or not. I do remember it mentioned the LX and it mentioned the GT. So it's kind of a cool song. So check that out. Yeah, Fox bodies are close to my heart because the first V8 Mustang I ever drove was an 86 Fox body. I like the 85. I think it's the carbureted one. 86 is the fuel injected one.
Yeah. I've got a really funny Fox body story if you've got time.
Let's do it right now.
I forget what year they were. They have like a summer edition Fox body.
Yes. Yeah. The red with the white. Is that the one?
Yeah. Convertible. My cousin meticulously restored one for his daughter, who was like 5 or 6 at the time. He's a big Fox body guy. Perfect, pristine car. Put so much love into it. I think I was 19 at the time. He's like, "Hey, why don't you take it for the weekend? You know, and it needs to be driven." And I was like, "Sure, absolutely." I was, you know, manual with a pretty quick 5.0 Fox body at 19 years old. Didn't crash it. Was like hyper nervous, you know, to even put a scratch on it. So I parked it at the end of my driveway, like 2 car lengths like off to the side of the driveway in the grass, thinking there's no way anyone will hit this thing in my driveway. And one of my sister's friends backed down the driveway, turned in the middle of the driveway to, like, you know, do a turnaround or whatever in the driveway, and smoked the car. And it had honestly probably maybe 20 miles since fresh paint and everything else. I mean, yeah, wow. That was the worst phone call I've ever had to call.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
I actually have a neighbor. I've met him once. He has one of those summer editions, red, white interior, white top, white wheels, the 5 spokes in my neighborhood. And he keeps it parked on the street, which kills me. Well, you know, it's new and it has like 120,000 miles. So it's just a used car.
After I crashed it, or it was crashed into, he parked it by his shed, or behind his barn to get it fixed up again. And it's been there now for 17, 18 years.
Oh, wow.
So I not only did I crash it, I just killed the car entirely.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
still sits there.
Wow. It's still there. Wow. We could always relive your childhood there. Get it back.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I wanted you on the podcast because you are the guy at RM Sotheby's, director of communication. So you've been a huge help to me, and I think a lot of my listeners find it really interesting about the roles at RM Sotheby's. So I had Megan on a couple weeks ago. That was one of my most popular ones. Obviously, you don't hear about cataloging, figuring stuff out to get a car prepped for sale. So obviously, it's really cool to have you on as a director of communication. So if you would tell us, kind of what does that entail? I'll ask you some follow-up questions, obviously, especially as it relates to Moto Miami and some other things. But tell us, what do you do on a day in and day out basis for RM Sotheby's?
In its most basic form, it's just telling the story of what we do, right? Of the cars we sell, how special they are, and sharing that story through press releases, social media, exclusives with certain outlets, and trying to just stay on top of trends and how people are taking in their stories, what people want to hear about. Working closely with people like you that have, very special cars that are coming to market and figuring out how can we tell these stories most effectively and in the most interesting way. So that's it in a nutshell. And there's, 100 other little things day to day that pop in and out. But
So when you go to our website or you open the email from Sotheby's, you'll see, whatever X special car is, but you're looking at like, well, what's the angle on this car? Does it have race history? Does it have ownership history? Does it have performance specs, right? Something interesting about that car to grab people's eyes.
absolutely. Like every car has a story of some sort, especially the cars that we're selling. And typically now, if you have a GTO, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, a Ferrari GTO, you don't have to get as creative because, they're the world's greatest cars or most desirable cars, most collectible cars. For example, there's a yellow Ferrari F50 that we just announced. And although it is a one of two US spec F50, it has really cool ownership through Ralph Lauren, right? So Ralph Lauren owned it. That instantly is the kind of thing that I know media is going to pick up on, or that's going to help, tell the story of the car. Most outlets aren't really interested in, hey, here's a Ferrari F40, it's red. What are they going to say? They're going to promote RM Sotheby's and say, hey, they're selling this F40. But then all of a sudden you're like, well, Michael Jordan drove this car in whatever, 1998 or something. Or, this car was the first displayed F40 in America, right? Which we've done before. There's always something to some car that will, get a headline, will make it feature on a podcast or on social media. There's always something special. You just have to find it.
Yeah, and you do across all platforms, like you do the sealed, Sotheby's sealed, as well as online, as well as anything North American based.
Essentially, yeah. I do assist with sealed. Those cars typically are all very special in some way, like the Schumacher car that we're selling in Monaco. Same thing. It's a very special car. But yeah, I assist essentially throughout the whole company. We have a PR team in the UK as well.
Now, I wasn't going to bring up the Ferrari GTO, but since you did, walk us through that because that was a very unique
Yeah.
car, obviously, an offering and form in which to sell it, right?
Yeah. So what always strikes me as most interesting about that car and that whole sale, obviously you and I worked very closely on that for 6 months, I think,
Right.
was keeping it a secret. Like
Yeah.
that was almost the story there is we've got a very special GTO. Some would say the most special, right? With its Le Mans race history. We knew that no matter what, when we shared this car with the world, it would make headlines, right? But how can we keep this car a secret? And like in this world, it's when one of those cars appears or even is whispered to be for sale, everybody knows, right? The phone's ringing off the hook. And I think we successfully pulled it off when we unveiled it in Monterey after, 6 months of work and probably 20 to 30 people really knowing that the car was coming to market. And we still were able to surprise our audience, our clients, the world when the GTO rolled up on stage. And a lot went into that. There was like a adrenaline dump once that car was unveiled.
That was really fun because we went out there at, I think it was 5 in the morning to unload it off of the reliable trailer.
Yeah.
And there was one guy out there with his cell phone going, recording it.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think Gord walked up to him and said, hey, you can post that, but just wait till like 9 o'clock or whatever it was, whatever time. And he did. He held it off and waited. And then I had the joy of driving quote unquote driving my first Ferrari GTO, Gord pulled it with a golf cart silently through the streets, and I had
Okay.
to steer it. So I didn't really drive it, but uh,
Yeah.
that was
And
something else.
that's funny that you mentioned that, because that's one of the things when we're marketing these cars or when we are pulling these cars in. A lot of times there are people just organically capturing the content because they know there's going to be some sort of car there. And that just fuels the fire as well, right? Like we've had cars where they start to gain traction because they've been spotted, or glimpsed at, and people get excited when they can see a GTO that they're not supposed to see, or any other car for that matter. And that stuff all kind of plays to the story, and or that all of that stuff adds to the story of the cars and what we're doing.
Yeah, I do remember Simon Kidston came up to me in the lobby there where the car was on display, and he's like, "Nobody knew this car was
Yeah.
coming. None of your coworkers, or none of your competitors knew. The guys from Bonhams and the other auction houses, they came by to look at it. And when our competition doesn't get wind of it, and like the guys like Simon that are really well connected, they don't have a clue, and they come and they congratulate you, at the
Yeah.
event. That really says, how under wraps we were able to keep it, which was really
Yeah.
cool.
And this is going to sound cheesy, but I think that just comes down to the people that work with us and for us, right? I mean, we had a core team working on that car and not a word was said. And that's tough to do, to contain your excitement when we're flying to, Ohio to look at a GTO, and nobody can know, and you're just holding it in for 6 months. And for people like Kidston to not have any idea that it was coming to market, lets you know that we really knocked it out of the park there.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. So have there been instances where actually I can think of one with the GTO where you do all of your work, you work up the press release, it's announced, and then the publication that announces it gets it wrong.
It happens all the time. It's just human error, right?
I know, but they get a copy of it. Don't they just have to copy paste? I mean, you
It
know,
just like they reporters, journalists, outlets, they get hundreds of pitches a day. They're writing one or taking in information on one, there's something else going out. It just happens. We just had it happen a couple times, or a couple weeks ago, where the estimate was off or the year's off, but it's never a big deal. You just shoot them an email and they'll correct it if it's a factual error, and on you and you move on.
well, for the GTO was the announcement in the Wall Street Journal they had the wrong year. I couldn't believe that.
Wasn't there we had kind of went back and forth with Ferrari about
Yeah.
what year, what we were going to actually call the car, whether it was I forget the years, a 64,
62
62.
330 LM slash 250
Yeah,
GTO. They listed it as a 64, which
yeah,
in their defense is probably when it was when it was transitioned to a GTO by the factory,
yeah.
so you can kind of make the
And, and
argument.
and what happens a lot, I think, in the industry too, is if you're working with an exclusive in a specific outlet, you're feeding them information as you get it. And as information changes, and hey, you know what, this car wasn't owned by Ralph Lauren, let's say it was owned by
Steve Lauren.
yeah, Steve Lauren. They sometimes like will take information off of the first draft that you sent them, or the second, or and don't
Sure.
typically follow up. And you don't get to read what they write prior to it being
Right,
sent out
right.
into the world. And that's a really big misconception that a lot of people think. They're like, well, can't I just see the article? Can't we proofread it? I'm like, no, that's not how earned media works. It's just, yeah, one of the risks you take when you do an exclusive.
Well, and you've got quite a Rolodex, obviously, all the players in the press world, media world. You have to, it's your job. But then you also are really tight with some of the top influencers. From
Yeah.
a car influencing perspective, I want to ask you who's the worst and most reliable. How about who is the best and most enjoyable to work with?
So we typically only work with people that we think help our brand, and vice versa, just really symbiotic relationships. We're not gonna just work with an influencer because they're, or content creator because they're the most famous. We really like to work with people that we like, really, that we get along with, and that share the same vision and passion that we do. So if you look at the people that we work with often, like Shmi and Magnus and Life of Riley, people, or Roman Grosjean, people that you see on our pages frequently, it's just a good relationship. We're friends. They want to work with us. We want to work with them. Obviously, we have access to the best cars in the world, and they are, world famous people that kind of, again, help share our story. So if you're working with RM, or if you're working with us and my team, then we just truly get along. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it totally does. It's got to be, you got to like them as much as they like you. You got to have
Absolutely.
similar goals. You have to like the content that they put out there and promote, obviously.
Yeah. And it goes both ways. Like I said, we have the world's most special cars and access to things that most people don't have. And they have enormous audiences, and we truly like working with them. And it's just, yeah, it's honestly one of the best parts of the job is hanging out with these guys and gals and building the relationships. And it doesn't really feel like work when you're, with Roman Grosjean and a Countach in Miami, and you're getting paid to be in a Countach with Roman Grosjean. And
Right.
and he's having a ball and he's making content, and we're showing off a car with a world famous racing driver, and it's just like, wow, pinch me, right? This is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, that's very, very cool. So tell me a little bit about your role with Moto Miami. Obviously, year two is in the books this year, and it was two incredible years in a row, just unbelievable. What has been your role in that? Obviously, you have the influencers that you bring there, but beyond that,
So in the first year, it was very much traditional, getting the word out there through the biggest outlets we could find or that we could partner with. So we really tried to get the word out internationally that it was happening through major publications, and it worked. Obviously, people knew that was happening. We obviously had the going head to head with Amelia Island naturally provided a story, and kind of going back to the cars, there always needs to be an angle because a new car show isn't necessarily news um, until people can experience it. It's hard to get traction on something like that, but when you're going head to head with another major concours in the same weekend, all of a sudden there's a story there. Um, and whether it's good or bad press, it helped tell people that Moda Miami was happening, right? So that was kind of the angle the first year. On the ground, same thing. We had a lot of journalists and reporters that were there that we were hosting, showing around, kind of giving them the full experience of what Moda was. And then going into the second year, there was a lot more momentum. People knew about it, people were excited about it. And we shifted our focus to a kind of social heavy PR campaign versus traditional media, mainly because I thought that would drive ticket sales. And Magnus, like, people love actually seeing, their automotive heroes in real life. And Moda is meant to be accessible, right? It's not a Pebble Beach or something where it's kind of expensive or hard to get to. You could literally come here, see Magnus Walker, get a book signed by him, and people really, I think, appreciate that. And I don't know if you saw it, but social media, you couldn't get on social media during Moda without seeing
yeah.
something. Whether people were there, content creators were there, media was there. It just took over the internet for about a week there. We saw explosive growth on our channels, a crazy engagement. So we knew what we were doing was working. So it was awesome.
All right. Speaking of channels, what is the primary way to communication, for RM Sotheby's? I know, YouTube, Instagram, but what is the most powerful communication tool you have in your arsenal right now?
I still think the gold standard is Instagram. That's what most brands are using. That's still what most people are using. Obviously, you're seeing a shift with younger generations going to TikTok, but I still think Instagram is the most important at the time because it's everybody uses it from your 55-year-old car collector to the 17-year-old car spotter. They're all on Instagram. By extension, Facebook, since they're kind of they share audiences. But we prioritize all of them in different ways. There are things that we only put on Twitter and LinkedIn, and things we only put on TikTok, and vice versa. So each reel or each platform kind of lives in its own space depending on where we think it's going to get the most traction.
So, in your time at RM Sotheby's, what has been your most memorable media experience? Whether it's going with someone in South Florida in a Countach, or flying somewhere in a McLaren F1, or whatever. Like, what is something you'll always remember?
So one of my biggest passions is Formula One, and I've been a Formula One fan for probably 20 years, 15 years. Obviously, I like any car. I like Duesenbergs, I like Mercedes, I like Ferraris, but when we got Lewis Hamilton's 2013 car, which was Lewis Hamilton's first Mercedes that he ever won in, which to me, it's like, okay, you've got arguably the greatest Formula One team ever. Ferrari fans are going to kill me, but I'm a Ferrari guy. And I say, hands down, the greatest driver of all time in Lewis Hamilton. And then you have the chassis that he won his first race in, and getting to be part of that, from the very beginning, on how are we marketing this? What kind of content are we going to make with it? Who can we share the story with, to it selling in Las Vegas for like $20 million, with it had a $10 million high estimate. And to me, that was special. So, and it wasn't so much because it sold for double what we thought it would, but to me, it even deeper than that, kind of cemented Lewis Hamilton. Like, he's already broken every record, and now he's got one of the most expensive cars ever sold, and the market had never really seen what a special Hamilton car would go for, and now we know. So, one of the things, going back to, like, every car has a story, that I kind of latched onto with that car when I was talking to press was, so there's 7 world championship winning chassis out there that Lewis Hamilton drove across the finish line to win a championship, right? And you can have the first or the last, or you can have a Lewis Hamilton winning car, or a championship winning car even, but only one person is going to have the very first Mercedes or Silver Arrow he ever won in, right? So, like,
Right.
to me, it's like that makes it almost more special than the championship winning cars. Like, this is the beginning of the Hamilton dynasty, right? I'm sorry, now I'm going to nerd out on Formula One, but all of that in one car was really special. And I think probably the most fun. I was working until midnight on calls trying to get this car out the door. And when I say out the door, I mean shared with the world. Even then, I was like, this is too cool. I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll ever have a shot at his winning Ferrari Formula One car, because have they wised up on the prices of these cars, and the factories are no longer letting them loose?
I think it's not that. I think it's prior to 2014, cars still were relatively not simple, but you could still run them, right? Nowadays, they're so advanced. I think it's hypothetical on if you could run one privately, or what that may cost. So I think you'll still see, in my opinion, that the prior to 13 cars, or the 2013 cars, will always be more desirable until you can kind of reliably drive one of these things or run one of these things. And not that everybody drives them, but knowing that this car is going to be bricked for its entire life unless you spend $20 million or something, I think will affect value in some way. But again, we've never seen a Verstappen car come up for sale, and I feel like if you get a Verstappen championship car in there, it doesn't matter if it has an engine or not. It's going to be very desirable. So yeah, we'll see. I'm looking forward to that. One day, I think that'll happen. We'll see.
Yeah, and also, aren't you always looking for new partnerships? Obviously, RM is, they've had the Formula One contract, some different things, different events, Las Vegas and such. But from a director of communications, you're always looking out for ways to better grow the brand, right?
Yeah, it's not one of my primary duties. It actually is more so with Moda. But yeah, there's a lot of brands that have similar audiences, that have similar clients, that are, again, just a natural fit for us. So we do occasionally partner with brands. Yeah, we did have a Formula One partnership a while back, and as you can see, we've sold a couple more cars, I think, in association with them, like the Schumacher car coming up. I think that's we're partnering with the Paddock Club to have that car in Monaco, which is really cool. But yeah, I think Moda, that's the biggest opportunity for RM and for Moda itself to really showcase what we can bring to the table when it comes to other brands. We saw Rolls-Royce, Cadillac, and Mercedes-Benz as kind of our biggest partners for Moda in 25, and it was just a natural fit. People loved it. It was great.
Well, I appreciate you being on the podcast. Can you give us some type of sneak peek as far as what's coming out from a RM Sotheby's perspective, or is it all hush hush?
Yeah, there's nothing. Everything's hush hush. We just announced the first Monterey car, the Ralph Lauren F50, and I think all I can say is there'll be some big cars coming to Monterey, and then we do have some exciting stuff coming up in the fall that I can't mention, so you're gonna have to stay tuned.
Well, I have to have you back to make these big announcements.
And there's an announcement, I think, coming this fall that will be sort of relevant to some of the things we talked about today. So I'd love to come back on and share that announcement with you when it happens.
All right, cool. Well, one last question. If you could have just one car in your garage, price not an object, what would it be? And you have to drive it. It can't be a Formula One car.
Oh man, no. Well, my dream car was very accessible for the longest time. It was a 1977 Lincoln Mark V. That was my first.
That's your dream car?
Well, it was forever. It was my first car when I was 16. I wrecked it, and I always told myself, I'll buy another one when I have the means to do it, and I did. And I actually just sold it a couple weeks ago. So, geez,
Why'd you sell it?
I've had it for five. It was essentially in storage. I had it for 5 years. And I drove it twice, and
Oh, okay.
the transmission went just from sitting there. Replaced the transmission, and then it sat for another year. And I was like, it's gonna happen again. Hang on, I have to think about this. It'd have to be something that I can take my kids with me in. So I don't know. I guess. Hang on, I'm really struggling with this one. I would say Ferrari F40, but I want to be able to take the kids in the back, so that's not going to work.
So you're looking for a high performance 4-seater is what you're
Yeah.
looking at. How about a BMW E39?
No, I've got it. So I'm a big fan of sedans in general. So if budget wasn't an issue, and I'm not have to have a Pagani guy or a Koenigsegg, I'd be happy with a V12 sedan, like a BMW 7 Series with a V12. I think that's awesome. I'm from Detroit. I think Hellcat Chargers are awesome. Something that you can literally put the whole family in and still have enormous amounts of power on reserve, I think is pretty cool and practical, right?
Yeah, sure. That's practical. All right, cool.
We'll see. Maybe one day I'll get a Hellcat.
Yeah, awesome, Ethan. Well, thanks for being on the Collector Car Podcast. Now stay tuned because I will play the complete Corvette C3 Survivor song. And yeah, thanks for being on, Ethan.
Anytime, and I'll talk to you in a couple weeks when we make the fall announcements.
That sounds great.
Cool, man. Have a good one.
Well, they rolled out in 68, mean and low and lean. Coke bottle curves, the wildest thing you'd ever seen. Small blocks screaming, big blocks roaring loud. King of the blacktop, stare loud from the crowd. C3 Survivor, muscle on the line. High test burning, running out of time. Small block lightning, big block thunder roll. Never got the love, but they sure got soul. 427, 454 dreams, making the pavement crack at the seams. But the suits and the oil men, they slammed on the brakes, took the gas into glory, left a trail of heartbreaks. C3 Survivor, muscle on the line. High test burning, running out of time. Small block lightning, big block thunder roll. Never got the love, but they sure got soul. They called them dinosaurs, they called them too wild. But fire like that don't go out, it just goes out of style. Fiberglass fighters, chrome and steel dreams, still hear them howling down memory streams. Now they sit in the shadows, still tough, still proud. Under the dust, still screaming out loud. From the strip to the street, they were born to ignite. Forgotten maybe, but they're still